Yo, what's up, y'all? It's Vince. I'm under construction, and since we didn't bring you guys a video this week, I'm bringing you one of my hot takes. Now, if you caught Kaiser's hot take earlier this week, he talked about why Charlotte should go after Russell Westbrook. If you didn't watch it, you should go back and watch it, okay? He highlighted a lot of good points, as far as the competition, the quality of the player that he is, the locker room cancer that he's perceived to be, his stat padding and all that good stuff. But overall, his position was that we should go after Russell Westbrook. And even if we don't bring him in, then we at least should attempt, because if we don't, then the fan base will be livid. And here's my deal. I love Russell Westbrook. He's one of my favorite players. Whenever OKC comes to town, I do make it a point to try and go and watch him, because I do love his play on the court. But I don't agree. I wouldn't advocate for Russell Westbrook to come to Charlotte, and I'm going to tell you why. One of the biggest reasons I don't want him to come is the financial obligation. He signed for the next 4 years on a 5-year contract, and I'm going to run a few stats off for you guys, okay? Next year, he's owed $38.5 million. After that, he's owed $41 million, $44, and then in the final year of his contract, he's owed $47 million. Now, Westbrook is a perennial all-star. He's the only player in history to average a triple-double. 3 years back-to-back. I think he's the first player to do it 2 years back-to-back, first or second, but no one has ever done it 3 years back-to-back. I think there's only one other player that's ever done it at least once, and he's the first to do it 3 years in a row. So as far as a play on the court, you're going to get your money's worth. But one of the things that I've gotten hung up on, why would you trade for a player that you would have to pay $38+ million when you wouldn't even give Kemba Walker more than $30 million a year? And Russell Westbrook is head and shoulders a better player than Kemba Walker, but I think Kemba's more team player. He's more of he fits with a team a lot more. He comes with a lot less headache. There's not any memes of Kemba Walker with the clothes that he's wearing and all that good stuff. But Kemba Walker only wanted 175, reportedly. He only wanted 175, which would have translated to about $35 million a year. So we're going to choose not to pay our arguably greatest Hornet of all time. I don't think he's the greatest Hornet of all time. That would be another hot take. But arguably the greatest Hornet of all time, $35 million per year. But you would trade for a guy that starting off you would have to pay $38 million every year. And it wouldn't be just a one-for-one trade. We would have to give something up. Now, with us being Charlotte, obviously we would want to get rid of some of those bad contracts. And the two biggest bad contracts we have right now is Nick Batum and Marvin Williams. I personally don't believe there's not a team in the NBA who would not take one of those two players without us having to give something else up, whether it be a bevy of first-round picks, whether it be cash considerations, or whether it be one of our younger players. And of the young core that we have right now, Miles Bridges probably has the highest ceiling, and probably Dwayne Bacon behind him. But I don't think Bacon has done enough to put himself on the league's radar. We think it's good, but I don't think most of the league knows enough about Dwayne Bacon for teams to be like, yeah, let me get a side of Bacon with that bridge, okay? So I don't want to give up Miles Bridges. I think his ceiling is too high to simply just to dump off contracts, okay? But with that, Kaiser also said in his video that if Westbrook was to come to Charlotte, the Hornets would become immediate playoff contenders. And they probably would. They would probably get into the East as a perennial 6 or 7 seed, but I doubt we'd see the second round. And that leads me to my next point. The last 5 or 6 years or so, the Hornets fan base have been crying that this team isn't good enough to get to the second round in the playoffs, but we aren't bad enough to pick higher than 10 when it comes to the draft. So if we get Westbrook, we're in the same situation. We're in the same predicament for the next however many years. So that brings me to my next argument would be to let the youth play. If we trade for Westbrook and we're constantly picking 10, 11, 12, anywhere through 15 or 20 and whatnot, the team will ultimately not improve. But without Westbrook, if this team is as bad as everybody said it is, next year we'll probably have a top 6, top 7 draft pick. And it's going to be like that for at least the next 2 seasons, possibly the 3rd season. So let those young guys play. Let Bacon play. Let Bridges play. Let Monk play. Let Graham play. And we even got a kid that we drafted last season who didn't even play with us. He's from overseas. He's a Lithuanian kid. His last name is, where I got it at, it's somewhere on here, Kubaka. And he's in Lithuania, and they aren't even playing him over there because essentially they would just be preparing him to come over here and play for Charlotte. So bring him over here from Lithuania and let him play. And if we go out there and if we're getting blown out by 30 points every night, then so be it. It's going to be like that for the next 2 years anyway. We'll get some top players, and in about 3 years, when all those bad contracts have dumped off, then we can actually start building a legitimate team, which actually brings me to my next point. And Brooklyn did this. I don't think they intended to do it, but Brooklyn has, quote unquote, set a blueprint that I think Charlotte should follow. And I'm going to throw some more numbers out there for you. 2 seasons ago, their active roster, not their entire cap hit, but just their active roster, those 12 or 13 guys that were on their roster 2 years ago, gave them a cap hit of $89 million. Last season, the active roster gave them a $77 million cap hit, okay? This year, that $77 million jumped all the way up to $119 million. And everyone's like, well, how? Well, because they went and they just signed DeAndre Jordan, they signed Kyrie Irving, and they signed Kevin Durant. And what happened was, if you take those 3 names out, that $77 million from last year dropped all the way down to $39 million. And that's why they were able to sign 2 max contract players plus another legitimate player in DeAndre Jordan. With Charlotte, if we wait out these next 2 years, in 2021, sorry about that, we will have $121 million against the cap, okay? And out of that, no, actually I'm wrong. But in 2021, everybody will be gone with the exception of Terry Rozier and Miles Bridges and the guys that we just signed this year. And Rozier would be owed $17.9 and Bridges would be owed only $5 million. So just imagine the amount of players we will be able to bring in if we don't bring in a player like Westbrook or anybody else like that, okay? So that's my thing. And getting back to the Rozier thing, that would be his final year in his contract. I wish Charlotte gave themselves a team option in that 3rd year, but they didn't. Maybe they can possibly use them as trade bait to get them out of here if there's another point guard available. I don't know. But in 2 years, if we don't add anybody else and just let the youth play, again, Bridges and Rozier are the only 2 players that are currently signed for the next 3 years, okay? And that's pretty much it. So, again, like I say, don't bring in a heavy contract. I think you would be making more mistakes, more of the same mistakes that we've made in the past. And just let the youth play. It's going to be bad. It's going to be ugly. We'll be able to hear each other talk and hear each other think when we go to the games. But I think if we just let the youth movement go and we just wait for 2 more seasons and we have all that money, all that cap space, I think looking back on it, I think this would be the right move if we choose not to go after Russell Westbrook. So those are just my thoughts on how I feel about Westbrook, how I feel about what the team should do going forward. So this isn't meant to attack anybody. I don't want no smoke. I know the Hornets fans are pretty upset right now. If you talk to any of them, it's not good to be a Hornet fan right now. We are the laughing stock of the NBA right now. And the Chinese national team just got their first win versus an NBA team last night. And granted, none of the starters played last night. So Bridges, Graham, Bacon, they didn't play. But the Chinese national team got their first win against an NBA team, and it was against the Hornets. See y'all next time.